Hey, shalom everyone, this is Kris Shoemaker, also known as Yehudah ben Shomeyr, and welcome to the Daily Drash. Today's Daily Drash is taken from Psalm 84, and I'm going to be reading from verse 10 from the Jerusalem Bible. It says, "A single day in your courts is worth far more than 1,000 elsewhere. Merely to stand on the steps of God's house is better than living with the wicked." Now, this psalm is referring to the temple, and it's called a pilgrim song because it was a song that the pilgrims sang during the three pilgrim festivals, which is Passover, Pentecost, and Feast of Tabernacles. And so if you didn't live in Jerusalem and you live further away somewhere in the land of Israel, at least 3 times a year you would go to Jerusalem and you would worship at the temple. And that's where God's name was placed. That's where God's presence dwelt and was felt and was experienced. And the psalmist is just referring to how great and how sweet it is, how fulfilling it is, how awesome it is just to be in God's house and to be in his presence. And just that short time at the pilgrimage festival is worth 1,000 days somewhere else. And though we don't have a temple that's standing in Jerusalem today that we could go to and make pilgrimages to, God has placed his name and his presence in different places in everybody's individual lives. I'm sure that you could probably think right now of one of your favorite places in your life in the world that you can go to and you feel closer to God than anywhere else. It might be your synagogue, it might be your church, it might be at a campground. Who knows? But for me, I feel closest to God and I feel his presence most near and dear and strong when I'm out in the woods. To me, that is the greatest temple and the greatest sanctuary. Having the trees be the pillar and the vaulted sky be the ceiling, and the moss and the litter of leaves be the carpet in the temple, so to speak. Um, and I feel his presence, and I could just stay there all day and just, and I don't have to say anything. God doesn't have to say anything. We're just there experiencing each other's presence, and just how it's undescribable. You can't describe it. How good and how sweet that it feels just to know that he's there, to feel his presence. And his presence is just rejuvenating. It's just reviving. It's just refreshing. And he doesn't have to say anything. Just him being there makes you alive because God is the source of life. He is the source of love. He is the source of life itself. The letters of John says that God is love, and Moses says that his word is your life, that he is your life. And so just to experience God's presence and make that your sanctuary, make that your temple, find a special place, whether it be in your church or your synagogue or out in the woods, or maybe a special room or a special place in your house where you feel God's presence most strong, or whatever. Just find a place where you can get alone with God and you can just sit there and soak in his presence. He can enjoy your presence and you can enjoy his. I mean, we think that it's us that gets the benefit. I mean, sure, God is God. He doesn't need anything to sustain himself or to sustain his existence. He doesn't need us, but he wants us. He desires us. Just like sometimes, just sitting in the same room with my family, and maybe my daughter's on her phone and my wife's reading a book, and maybe I'm reading or something like that, and we're not doing anything or saying anything with each other, but just being in each other's presence is enough. It's just such a sweet feeling just to have everybody in the same room and to know that everybody's there and safe, and just be there. And so sometimes with us just being there, God enjoys our presence just as much as we enjoy his presence. He's glad to spend time with us just as much as we are glad to spend time with him. So even if you sit there in silence and not even pray, not even read, but just enjoy his presence and meditate on his goodness and on his holiness, sometimes that is enough. And it just reminds me of this verse. It says, "A single day in your courts is worth more than 1,000 elsewhere. Merely to stand on the steps of God's house is better than to live with the wicked." Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. Shalom and Shavua Tov. Come to abrahamsdescendants.com and check out our kosher comic section called Inside the Bushel and its archives. You'll be glad you did.